Hello and welcome to the Queen's Couch Podcast with our amazing host, Dr. Tanika Victoria. She curates a space for women where all women are encouraged to collaborate and do not collide. Join us on the couch tonight. Hello and welcome to the Queen's Couch. I'm excited to have you join us today as we continue our series of our Pink and Purple Warriors. So today our topic is going to be from victim to advocate, and I have none other than Coach GiGi with me, and I'm excited to get into this conversation. So I just want to say in this conversation on tonight, I pray that you are provoked, that you are encouraged, and if you are triggered, know that at the end, we are going to pray because guess what? We're here to tell our stories, to live our truth, and we want you to be helped. We want you to be empowered. We are in no way therapists, but we are here sharing our experiences and what we can do to support you on your journey. If you're coming out of domestic violence and if you are still in this state, I hope that that's listening to us tonight, you will be able to find hope. So I want to introduce to you none other than Coach GiGi. How are you tonight, Coach GiGi? Come on and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Giovanni Whitfield, but I go by Coach GG. I am a domestic violence and abuse survivor. I am a life coach where I help. I am the build her masterpiece. I am the visionary and strategist of, and as a victor of domestic violence and abuse, I coach determined women who have overcome such profound challenges and are ready to rebuild their lives, their self worth, their confidence, their hope, their trust, just rebuild their lives after being delivered. Because that's what we were. We were delivered from domestic violence and abuse, and I'm just so excited to be here to share with you all the movement of Build Her Masterpiece.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was amazing. And so I wanted to share a little bit. I live in the state of South Carolina, and South Carolina has one of the most alarming rates when it comes to domestic violence. And so I want you to dive in and tell us your journey. What made you move from victim to advocate? And how do you help women? So tell us your story. Tell us how did you get to be Coach GiGi? How did that happen?
Okay, well, let me tell you my story, how it all started. It started back, over 20 plus years ago, you guys. And when I first went into the relationship, look, I come from a family. I'm the only girl, and so fighting was my jam. As people would say, fighting was my jam. So fighting was no problem for me because we was going toe to toe, toe to toe. So I thought it was cute. I wasn't saved then, and then when I got tired and was ready to go, I thought I could just pack my stuff up and walk out the door. But it ain't that easy. It wasn't that easy. I tried to leave and I couldn't leave. And that's when I found out that I was bamboozled, as they say, into a narcissistic, abusive relationship. So it started out real good. It started out, real good. And before I got into the domestic violence and stuff, I was the life of the party. I was vibrant. I was full of ambition and everything. So when I got with this individual, I was like, he had his own business, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this gonna work out. He had his own business, he had his own money and everything. And I was like, okay, so we can build together. That's what I thought. We could build together. And then it started as like little jokes, but it was real. It wasn't jokes. It was like little emotional little things that was being said emotionally, and it started to eat at my self esteem. And so as it was eating at my self-esteem, as we were going, I was like, well, maybe it's me, because the things that was being said, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I just need to change what I'm doing, or, change. They made it, he made me feel like it was me. And so it turned into manipulation and, all kind of that stuff. And then I think the first time, when he grabbed me, we was fighting. And so I'm like, oh no, we ain't finna do this. I come from a fighting background. And so it was back and forth, back and forth. The words were going, we were going back and forth. And then it got physical. And when he grabbed me and choked me to the point where I couldn't breathe and I fainted. When I came back to myself, I was crying. I was like, how could the man that I love do this to me? What did I do so bad to make him do that to me? So I started thinking that it was me, and trying to fix it. Here we are, um Miss Lucy Lunch Meat, that's what I'm gonna say. Lucy Lunch Meat, thinking that we can fix everything. Let me try to do this, let me try to do that, and then be known to it. Next thing I know, I was stripped away from my family and my friends, slowly but sure. But me focusing on him, trying to, because I'm thinking it was my fault, trying to fix it. I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I fix it this time, he won't do it no more. But it kept on going and it kept on going. And then when I realized it, I'm like, you know what? Something ain't right. And at that time, I was not in church like I am now. But to God be all the glory. When you have a praying grandma, great grandma, great auntie, all them people that, I was raised up in church. So those prayers started coming back to me. And I started praying. I'm like, okay, Jesus, you're going to have to get me out of this. You're going to have to get me out of this. I know only you can. And I don't want to be out of the, I want to go out in peace, Peace, not pieces, Pieces, because it's going to either be me or him. And, when we grow up, we grew up like what goes on in this house stays in this house. So
Mm-hmm.
I suffered for years in silence. I still went to work. Nobody on my job knew what I was going through. My family may have known it, I don't know. But if they did, they didn't say nothing. So I'm thinking that they did know, because we some fighters. And so one day I just got so tired after maybe 14, 15 years of this particular relationship. And we got into a fight. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. So we were in the kitchen. There was a hammer on the counter. I took the hammer and I tore that nose up, y'all. I broke the nose. I did. And I called 911 because I wanted to get out of it. And at that time, when you are so just into it, you just don't know where you don't know what. It's like I want to say a high, but not a high. You just don't care. So when the police came, I said I was sorry. I started crying. And so I can remember this. And so the police was like, "Well, does he beat on you? Does he?" And I said no. That was my mistake. I said no because I'm trying to protect him. I'm trying to protect him because he's taking care of me, even though I'm working. But it's Jesus. He was working, but I was still the sole provider, so say, even though he had more money than me. So he went, got fixed up or whatever. Here I am again trying to fix it, trying to fix it. And so after that last fight we had, and this time I got black eyes, nose, face, everything swollen. I'm like, Jesus, I can't go to work like looking like this. So I had to call in. And so I got put on got reprimanded for attendance. And I was like, you know what? I can't lose my job. So I'm gonna have to do something different. So he went to work one morning after I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, God, if you get me out of this, I promise I won't do it again. So he went to work. I left. Didn't know where I was going or where or none of that. So I left. And so that is one of the reasons why I came to the park, because I took all my stuff and I went to the park. I went to the park, and back then the parks were different. They had little. I'm sitting under the little gazebo, but they had these, and so I went to a park, and I think I slept in that park for maybe 2 nights, and I cried and I cried and I cried, scared. So I didn't have nowhere else to go. I didn't want my family to know, didn't want my kids to know. So I went back. I did. I went back. And so the last time I was like, when I left, I had a plan. See, the first time I didn't have no plan, I just left. So I had a plan when I went left the last time. When I left that last time, my plan, I went and stayed in a hotel room right by my job where I could walk to work. It was right by my job. So I was good. And then here come this other person. That's why I say it's 20 plus years because I jumped out of one and jumped into another. And so that one was more verbal. It was more verbal, more verbal. It was the words on that one. And I'm like, okay, Jesus, I was going to church. I'm like, Lord, why I got to go back home to this? And so what I learned was it was purpose in my pain. And that's where Build Her Masterpiece was was birthed. I would write, I would write, I would write, I would write. And I'm like, okay, in my journal, in my diary, I would write. So God delivered me from that. And I was like, I say, God, this time I know I'm not going back nowhere. I'm gonna stay right here where you placed me. And so I may be jumping all over, jumping from here to there, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm telling my story the way I want to tell it. So
No, that's fine.
yeah, I'm telling it the way I want to tell it. So anyway, after this last one, so it was a total of like maybe 22, 23 years with two relationships. So after this last one, I got out. I thank God for the church. The church. I have to give it to the church. They prayed with me, they labored with me, and to God be the glory. I got healed. I went to therapy. I sat on couches. I sat on couches. And one thing about me, if you know me, you know me. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be unfiltered and just raw because one thing, if you want to be healed, you can't cover up nothing. You just got to be straight raw and say it how it is. And that's what I did. Yes, it hurt. Some of it was embarrassing. I was ashamed. But through my shame, through my testimony, through me being transparent, I got healed. And I'm still a work in progress. So what I do, we didn't when I came out, I didn't have nobody to teach me and tell me because remember, I'm being controlled by a person. Everything stripped away from me. I don't know how to go to the. You got to have your cell phone call when they call. You better call. If not, you fighting. You go to the store. You can't go nowhere. You ain't got no friends. You can't do this. So I had to go through that by myself. So I said, Lord, I want to be able to help women who have been delivered and don't know what to do once they have been delivered and set free to rebuild. Because once I got out of it, and I went to HEB, and I tell this story because this really helps me. I went to HEB, and I was going down the aisle, and there was something on the aisle, and I'm tall that I couldn't reach, and I asked the worker. He came down the aisle. I said, "Can you reach up there and hand me some?" He said, "Yes, ma'am, sure." So when he raised his hand, I jumped. That was a trigger because when you're fighting, they raise their hand and they come. It reminded me of when I got choked. So I jumped. And he said, "It's okay." I said, "I understand." I had to calm myself down. So that was a trigger. I had to learn my triggers. Once you learn your triggers and heal from your triggers, you good. And so that was my stepping point right there. I was like, okay, Lord, I need to learn my triggers. And once I learned my triggers and started healing and identifying my triggers and my emotional, because when you attach to somebody emotionally and when you leave them, it's like, and then too, I'm free, I'm delivered, but I'm still holding my phone, knowing that he's not going to call me. But that was something I had to be delivered from as well, because if you don't answer that phone when they call, but baby, when you get home, you better start bobbing and weaving at the door. So once I got delivered and started going through my therapy, I would come to the park and I would sit at the park. That's why I came, God told me to change the scene. Come sit at the park and tell this story. And so I stayed at the park, like I said, when I first, I was stayed at the park for two. And I'm not gonna say I was homeless because I wasn't. I had places I could have went, but I chose to stay at the park them 2 days. I chose to stay at the park those 2 days. And so now that and it's still a work in progress. And it was my passion in my heart. I heart women that are lost and who want to rebuild after they've been freed from domestic violence, but don't know how to. And so God gave me build her masterpiece. That wasn't, I didn't want it because I'm like, okay, build her masterpiece. I know what a masterpiece is. And her, build her, heal her, help heal her, heal, embrace, and reveal. And to know that we are unapologetic. We are voice activated, and we unapologetically authentic. So that is that's my journey to where I am today, and how build her masterpiece came about. So my thing is all about, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalms 139:14. We're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. God didn't make us to be nobody's punching bag. And I told God, you got me out of this. I ain't gonna be nobody punching bag. And so I said that, I was like, if I ever get into another relationship, I'm gonna be doing the hidden. But I had to take that verbiage out of my mouth because that's not what I want. And I know that's not what God made women to be. We ain't nobody's punching bag. And I refuse to be anybody else's punching bag. And I pray that my testimony helps every woman that's listening, that's on here live, and that will watch the replay.
That is a powerful testimony. I want to go back a little bit and I want to ask you um what were the early warning signs? I heard you say it was little jokes and things like that. So if someone's in a situation now and they think that they're in a domestic violence situation, but they may not know, what were some early warning signs that you would tell someone if they're in this situation? What were some signs that they could see?
Well, the signs that I saw, for me, pay attention to what they're saying. Pay attention to their actions, because it's gonna start out. If they start out, it's built up on lies. Because I was told, oh, we can do this, we can get this house, we can buy land, we can do it. So you pay attention to what they're saying, and if their actions are not lined up, and if when I was told, don't nobody want you but me. Oh, you think you try to leave if you want to. I'm gonna kill you. Those were red flags right there, and I'm looking. I'm like, well, maybe he just playing or joking, like I say, but those are real. And then
Hmm.
that bipolar or PTSD, schizophrenic, all above them actions, because they will flip. 1 minute they'll be so nice, then next 2 seconds they mean it. So what I thought was, okay, you calling me, I'll be home at this certain time, have dinner ready. Okay. Oh, okay, I can do that. And then you walk in the house throwing stuff, cussing, or whatever. Though, pay attention to those too. You throwing. I'm like, okay, well, what? I got the dinner ready. What is he acting like that for? So you have to pay attention to a person's actions, and close attention. Like when you on the phone and just getting into a relationship. My thing now is follow the spirit. Pray about everything. Pray about everything. But your gut feeling to tell you, okay, this ain't right. And it told me that it wasn't right, but I myself, okay, Lord, okay, well, maybe we can't change no man. That's one thing we can do. Back in my days, I would say, you know what? I can make a man. Only thing I can't do is blow breath in him, because I was living that life. But when I got tired of it, that's when I really started, was ready to go. That's when because at the beginning, I really wasn't paying it, because we was both living that life. And then when I got tired, that's when I started paying attention. But now, no, 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 women, pay attention to the actions and the lies that start at the beginning. The first, what you do is, when you ask somebody a question and they can't give you a direct answer, run, Forrest, run. Run, Forrest, run. If they can't give you a direct answer to your question, go the other way.
That's good. Just make sure you are listening to what they say. And
Yeah,
those jokes that, that some people think that are funny, like, I can't go anywhere without him calling me, and he wants to know my every move. He just loves me. Those are things that you definitely have to watch, because sometimes, as you say, sometimes in those relationships, it starts as verbal, and your self-esteem, you start to begin to think, what would make someone want to do these things to me? And so you start thinking it's you. You start thinking
yeah.
that you're the reason. You're the reason why this is happening. You're the reason why I cannot cause you to love me the way I want to. But you cannot do those things when a person is violent and a person has narcissistic tendencies. They're controlling. It's nothing you can do to stop them from being controlling unless God makes a major change in their life, and they have deliverance, they show fruits of righteousness. Those are the only ways that you're going to be able to get out of those things. So you said you have this ministry now. So tell me, when a woman comes to you, and what are some of the first steps they should take to be able to um, find support and help when they're coming out? What are the first steps they should take?
Well, when the first steps that you should take when you coming out is go to therapy, go to counseling. That's what I did. I went to therapy, I went to counseling, and I started out, and I ain't scared to say it. I went to go see a psychiatrist because I want to make sure. I went to because I was all over the place. And then I gradually, because seeing a psychiatrist and a therapist to me is totally different. Psychiatrists deal with trauma. Therapists may deal with trauma too. I'm not knocking neither one of them. I'm not knocking neither one because I thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was losing my mind um once I came out because I thought it was the wrong thing to do.
Mhm.
I had been so traumatized emotionally, physically, sexually, all the above. I had been so I was like, you know what? Let me go see um a psychiatrist because when I went to see the psychiatrist, and then after I was like, you know what? This is a generational thing because everybody in my family went to see a psychiatrist. I was like, wait a minute. Let me just try something different. So that's when I bumped it from a psychiatrist to a therapist because the psychiatrist wanted to put me in a mental institution, tell me I need to be in there. I'm like, I don't know, I don't need to be locked up no more. I done already been locked up all these years dealing with this man. So you ain't gonna lock me up no more. So I'ma just let you be over here. And so that's when I, started seeing a therapist where I would go to the sessions and she gave me, homework to do and helped me heal. And I still to this day go see one.
Okay. So how do you, when you think about, your therapy, how did your therapist help you to rebuild your self-esteem and your confidence, and help you to feel empowered? What were some things that you did to rebuild your self-esteem and to get your power back? Because sometimes when you're in a relationship, or you're in an abusive relationship, you feel powerless. You feel like you have no power. You feel like you have no hope. So, what were some things that you did to help build your self esteem and regain your power back?
Okay, well, yes, I did feel powerless and I did feel hopeless, but the God inside of me stood up inside of me and said, G, if you don't get your tail up, even with the help of the therapist, because it was the questions that she would ask me. She like I say, we are never broken beyond repair. Never broken beyond repair. And what I liked about my therapist is when I go to her, I talk. She let me talk. And then she'll be like, okay, so she would ask me, why do you feel powerless? Why do you, and would let her know, okay, I feel powerless because he took everything from me. Well, I thought he took everything. So she asked me, how did he take everything from you and you're sitting here talking to me? And so I started saying, I don't have no money. He just took my family away from me. And she was like, well, don't you think you can still get your family back? Do you work? Yes, I work. Okay, so he didn't take your money from you. Um, you can still you still here. She was like, hold your hands up. So I held my hands up. And so she say thank you, Jesus. And I said, thank you, Jesus. And so it was just little steps like that, little breathing techniques she would give me, tell me to do. And it was just like little who, what, when, where, why,
Mm-hmm.
that questions that I had to answer. And as well as church as well. Every Sunday I was at the altar. Every Bible study I was at the altar praying because I wanted that stuff off of me. And so I had to keep saying, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Greater is he that is within me than he that is in the world. I am full of God's miracle working power. Nothing can harm me. I don't wrestle against our flesh and blood. It's the principality. I just started quoting scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me my strength back. And as I kept going, I started being around people that would, help me to get my power back. And one thing I'm a strong person. I'm stronger than what I thought I was. And so every now and then, yeah, I get weak, and I I say what I want to say, and sometimes I might have to, filter it down or tone it down. But it's the God in me. That's all I can say. Dr. Taniko, but God. That's all I can say is but God. And that's why I want to help women. Because I've seen so many women that didn't make it. I've seen so many that didn't make it. And I've seen some that still just out of it and they turn to drugs. But if
Mm-hmm.
stop it or just help one, that's what my passion is. Because like I said, when I came up, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And now that I know better, I can help somebody else.
Mm-hmm. So you said you had children. So how did you navigate coming out of this situation, and um, how did it affect your children and your relationship with them um, in this situation?
So as I was going through it, my children didn't know. My children, my children didn't know because my mom had my oldest, and the other two, their dad had.
Mhm.
So um, they didn't know until as they got older, and a lot of people only know about it now because they really couldn't believe it, because when I put it out, build her masterpiece, about me going through domestic, I got so many inboxes, and they was like, you went through what? You carried yourself well, because I was always taught you don't have to look like what you're going through. So on the outside you couldn't tell, but on the inside I was tore from the floor. And
Mhm.
so my children didn't know at the time what was going on from me. Now, they may have suspected it or whatever. And yes, it caused a strain on my relationship with them. And I'm still rebuilding that.
Yeah.
And I'm still rebuilding that.
Awesome. So when I think about, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about your story. I'm thinking about all of the things that you had to go through. And you said the church was there to help you and pull you through. And you just begin to rely on the word of God, therapy, all of the things that you knew that could bring you out. And so as I sit here and I want to talk about, I want to shift and talk about, because there's so many women that suffer in silence. And so do you think because of the things that we were taught by our mother, that what goes on in this house stays in this house, caused you to stay longer? Was it um, was that one of the reasons? Did you feel like maybe your family wouldn't understand? I hear that a lot. When I talk to girls, most times, um, I they kind of they're afraid to tell their parents or to say I'm in this relationship because of shame or embarrassment. So what were some of the things that you do you believe the way you were raised, culture that did it cause you to stay longer?
Okay, so that what happens in this house stays in this house was part of it. And then too, you have fear of the unknown because you never know what your I'm gonna say this. I got one child, one son that don't care. He'll tear up the whole city if he got to. And so I didn't want to involve my children in what I was going through for the fear of either one of my kids getting hurt or him getting hurt, which now I really don't care. I should have. But that made me, and then too also insecurity because he's providing. He was a provider. He was, money. So that was, that, and just me, no confidence, low self-esteem, a lot of all of that played a part in it. But once I got built up enough strength to get away, I did.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your coaching a little bit.
Okay.
How do you tailor? So tell me what specific tools and techniques do you use with those that you're coaching to help them find life after domestic violence? So what are some things that you talk to the ladies about that you kind of hone in on to help them as they're rebuilding their life?
Okay, well, I'm just now starting my business. I'm just now starting. So my thing is, first of all, you want to talk to them, and so I have 5 promises that I promise my clients. And the first one is that I promise to listen with compassion and without judgment, because that's what I had to learn. It's a trust issue when you coming out. Who can you trust? Can I trust you to with my story, with my life to help me? Or are you gonna judge me? So that's because and I'm putting myself as if I was coming to a coach, and this is the things that I would look for.
Hmm.
And the second one is I promise to create a safe and supportive space. Everybody needs want to know that that where they at, their space that they're in is confidential, non-judgmental, and it's you support them. And then is I promise to empower to help you reclaim your authenticity and your voice. I lost myself. I didn't have a voice. So that's another thing that when working with me, what we're gonna work on. Then I promise to respect your pace. Everybody don't move at the same pace when rebuilding.
Hmm.
And everybody don't move at the same pace when rebuilding. So we gon' I'm gonna go with you at your pace. We're going to work at your pace. And then the last one is I promise to provide tools and strategies for lasting resilience, which is accountability. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to hold you accountable for what you are looking for in me as a coach. And I expect you to hold me accountable if I don't provide to you what I say I'm going to provide to you as being your coach.
Very good. So, say for example, I'm coming in, I'm getting out of domestic violence situation. I have children with me. I'm finally wanting to live my life, thrive, not live in fear. Um, what type of homework would you give me? What would our first session be like?
Well,
What would be the things you would tell me in that session? What would be the things you would ask me?
okay, so I have this. That's good. I'm glad you asked that. I have this curriculum. Well, I listen to me curriculum. I'm sounding like a school teacher, like you now talking about a curriculum. I have a plan for us to work through, and it's called "What's in Your Purse." And when I
Mhm,
say "What's in Your Purse," we gonna go through the piece. The P stands for we're gonna figure out your pain, your triggers, and your unprocessed emotions.
mhm,
You, unforgiveness. Oral, relationships. S is sex, and E is excuses. We're gonna work through all of those to help
mhm.
build your build your masterpiece and reveal your your unapologetically self.
And those are some great things, because sometimes you have to figure out, what, how can I get my peace?
Yes,
Who do I need to forgive? Because sometimes it's hard to forgive what you can't forget.
right.
And sometimes, we hear things and we hear stories like, you just need to forgive. But sometimes it's really hard to forgive what you haven't forgotten. And so working on that forgiveness piece is very important, because
Yeah.
forgiveness is going to free you to a new place that you won't be able to imagine. And so forgiving, and sometimes you may have to go write down, everything that this person has done. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then go through those things and say exactly what you're forgiving that person for, and asking God to help you. Like, I want to forgive this person for this. Help me to forgive. And I tell people that all the time. When you're going through a forgiveness journey, it's not um, a one-time thing. It's constant forgiveness. So tell me, how did you get to a place of forgiveness? What was that like? What was getting to a place of forgiveness, not only for the person that inflicted the pain, but how did you forgive yourself? Because sometimes I know we as women, we kind of blame ourselves so much for different things that happen in our life. How did you get to a place of self forgiveness? How did you forgive yourself for being in this situation? How did you do that?
Well, I forgave my. Hold on one second. Let me put this. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear? Okay. So how I got to the place of forgiveness, and I was like, if I can't forgive myself and heal myself, I can't go on. So what I started doing is I started writing down. I wrote a letter to God, and I wrote a letter to myself about everything that I needed, how I was feeling on the inside, all the way down back to not having no daddy, not growing up with no father, because I felt that by me not growing up with a dad, that's how I ended up in that in that situation. And so I just wrote out everything on a sheet of paper that I wanted to let go. And when I wrote it out, what I wanted to let go, I took it to church with me the next Sunday. I laid it on the altar when I went to the altar, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. When I got up off the altar, because he said, bring all your burdens to the altar and, leave them there. When I got up, I tore the paper up and I burnt it. When I got back outside, and I said, I'm leaving it here. So I had to go through steps. I had to go through steps. I went through prayer. I had to learn how to fast. And I still was going to therapy. I was still going to therapy. And I was like, I have to heal and forgive myself. And so I kept going through. It was not easy, Dr. Tanika. I cried and I cried and I cried. It was not easy. It wasn't easy, but I had to make it up in my mind and be determined. I had to, okay, Giovanni, okay, G, you don't want to be like this. And I would talk to myself in the mirror. I don't want to be like this, God. It was just talking to myself a lot. And I still do it. Talking to myself a lot and telling, devil, you ain't got no authority over me. I'm created in the image of God. I mean, I just had to learn. I just had to keep talk myself, talk through it, talk through it, talk through it. And then when situations came up, certain, um, trials came up and tests came up, I had to adjust, because at the very thing I wanted forgiveness for myself, that's what I was tested at. Stuff started coming out the woodworks. People from way back when I was in elementary school. This girl had a fight with in elementary school. All that stuff started coming back up. So he tested me on what I said I wanted to be forgiven about. So until this day, it's still in the back of my head, but it don't bother me. It don't. It does not bother me. And then, like I said, I still have to talk out stuff. I still
Mhm.
have to talk out stuff. I still have to talk to myself and be like, oh no, we ain't gonna do this. And then I have to catch myself too, because one thing about me, I go straight fight mode. defense. I go straight defense, no offense. I go straight defense. And so I'm like, okay, Jesus. And so some things I'm still working on with the forgiveness, but for the majority, I have forgiven. Because one thing is, I know in order to do what I do, what God has called me to do, if I want to walk, be the woman, God's uh, Christian woman that, well, I'm just gonna say God's woman that He wants me to help rebuild women. I have to be. It starts with me, and I can't help somebody else with forgiveness if I haven't forgiven.
Yes, that's so true. If you haven't given yourself, you know, and how are you going to be able to forgive others? So definitely forgiving yourself is very important. Forgiving others is also very important as well. Um, as I sit here, what would you say to yourself? If you could go back, um, and you was in the midst of it,
Mhm.
what words would you need to hear? There's so many women that are in this situation. Even women are being abused in the church, and um,
Yes.
so many that are being abused, and they're in church. They show up every day glamorous and beautiful, but when they take off the mask, when they take off the makeup, when they take off the hat, when they take off the pretty dress, there's so many layers to them that people don't even see, and they don't even feel, like you said, the safe space to say, I am in a situation where I am being um, abused, or I'm being battered. And I'm a woman of God. I believe God. My husband is here in the church with me, and I'm being abused, And so, what would you say to those women who are suffering in silence? What would you say to them? What would be something that if you could just tell them, from Coach GiGi, what would you say to those women that are suffering in silence, whether they're in the church, whether they're hiding it on their job, whether they're hiding it from their families, putting makeup on black eyes, wearing long sleeves so they won't see bruises? What would you say to them?
First of all, what I would do, I would go up and give them a hug. I would give them a hug and tell them God love them, and I do too, and I really do. I would give them a hug and say God loves you, and G do too. God made you fearfully and wonderfully made. God made you in His image. God made you not to be a punching bag. God made you to have peace. God made you to be His ambassador. You are beautiful. You don't deserve it. God didn't make in the Bible. It don't say nowhere where no man punching no woman. If it do, let me know. I would say I would just hug them and told them that I I'm here. I'm right here, and I would give them part of my testimony. But the first thing we have to do is come out of denial. You have to want to come out. I said it a whole bunch of times. I don't want to be in this. I don't want, but knowing I wasn't going nowhere. You have to have a made up mind. But to me, hugs, hugs. I'm a hugger, and I know everybody is not no hugger, but it was the hugs for me. It really was. It was the hugs for me. And then I was one of those where I tried to be hard, and I knew I wasn't. On the inside, I was crying. But it's when you suffering in silence, it's not something that you can just come straight out of just because somebody's telling you that they there for you, they giving you a hug. Because in my mind, I'm going straight defense again. Oh, you just want to know my business. That's what because I in church everywhere in my mind, oh, you just want to know my business. So you have to let them get to that place of, okay, tired. I'm just tired, sick and tired, tired of being tired, sick and tired of being tired, all the above. But it's something that we have to have a made up mind that we really, really want to do.
Mhm.
And I see it, and I guess because now I can see real good in the spirit. And what I would do, like I say, I would talk to them, and then I would ask them their name, and I would call their name out in prayer. I would call because I was that one. I was that lady going to work every day dressed up, going to church dressed up, going different places dressed up, and just tore up from the floor up on the inside. Just tore up from the floor up on the inside. But like I say, one day I got tired, sick and tired, and sick and tired. And it comes again to that, forgiveness part.
Mhm.
And now, my abuser, I can look at them. That's how I know I done forgave. Because when Lord Jesus, I ain't trying to see him, but if I do, I can look at you and just keep on going. But I ain't gonna stay too long because I might have flip and have a flashback and might want to slap you. I'm just keeping it real. Might want to slap or nuck if you buck, and I'm gonna be doing both of them, nucking and bucking. So
No, I understand. So there are so many people that know individuals that are suffering. What would you tell a family member if they suspected that a loved one was being abused? What would you tell them not to do? Because sometimes we come in and we come in and we cause more damage by coming up guns blazing. And I'm coming to get my sister. I'm coming to get my brother, and your sister or brother might not be ready to go.
what you
Uh,
do is you talk to them and you let them know that you love them and I'm here for you. And if you can, because I've had to do this, I would, set up a girls' day and say, oh, I'm coming to get you, or, you want to go, I would start off with little bitty steps. You got to with that and let them open up to you.
mhm.
I would start out, okay, I'm having a let's go do such and such, let's go here or whatever. And I'm gonna come pick you up. And that's what I would do. I would go pick them up, even though I know they had a car, because when you go pick them up, they can't leave, just jump up and leave. They got to stay and wait on you.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah, they got to leave when you leave. And that's what I would do, especially like go to church. That's where I would start at. Go to church. But I'm coming to pick you up. Oh, I can be I'm gonna come pick you up. We can go together then. Maybe after that we can go eat. Start with little stuff like that. And maybe like go get Bath and Body Works, go buy them something, let them know that they, you special, you mean some, start with little bitty stuff like that.
That is good. I used to, in my younger days, you could call me the Harriet Tubman. I remember um, being a child care director. You have staff and they go through. So I remember this one girl went to lunch break and she couldn't get back. Y'all, I was crazy. Let me tell y'all something. I'm about it now. I listen. Don't let this makeup fool you. So
Huh.
she couldn't come back from break. I said, why can't you come back? He said, because he won't let me. Now, y'all,
Huh.
I done got in. I said, put him on the phone. Y'all, I done
And see, I'm like
am
that too.
coming to get her, and you better let her out when I come. I done got in my car, drove over, got her. But what I realized, yeah, I got you for that moment. But when she was
Uh-huh.
gone,
It was worse. She got beat up.
abused her. She couldn't come to work the next day.
Yep.
She had black eyes. So what I want to tell people is don't do what I did. You thinking you can go in and save someone, but until you can support them, but when they're ready to go, then you just be there. But sometimes you can't go in a guns blazing. You can't go in um saying I'm taking him out of this situation. I'm gonna let him know I'm not playing with him. Yeah, and he let her come. She came back to work. Yeah, I dropped her off. But the next 2 days, because because he beat her up so bad that night. She could
Mm-hmm.
not come back to work. So if you do have a family member, or you do have a friend, or you have a coworker, just please use wisdom and do as much as they allowed you. Maybe I should have just said okay and let her stay, and maybe the next day I could have talked to her, or we could have gotten some resources, and she finally did leave him years and years later. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a long spiral. It was years before she left. And as much as I talked, and as much as I was like, until a person makes up their mind, I just
Mm-hmm.
could only support them as much as I could, letting her know I loved her. I was there praying for her, listening to her, wiping her tears. And sometimes in this space, you can't be very judgmental, because for you it might be easy. I'm about to walk out here, I'm about to leave. But for someone who feels like they're trapped in a box and in a cage, they feel like they're powerless. They feel like they can't even push any pass further because they're mentally and emotionally tired. It's not as easy as you think. You know, you might be that person that, hey, I can just walk out, I can leave. But when you've been in this situation for so long and your self esteem is gone, um, your willpower is gone, because you know those things happen to you. And so, just if you have a family member, I really admonish you to not be judgmental. You know, let them know you're there for them, but don't
Yes.
go telling them they're crazy. Why you here? You're being an offender yourself. You just don't know it. So make sure when you're talking to someone, don't say I'm telling you this because I love you, because that's what they hear when they're being beat.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to hear that. That's counterproductive. And so I just want to tell you, because sometimes we love our friends and we like, girl, I wouldn't do this. Are you crazy? Why are you doing it? No, no, no. That's not going to make them leave, because they're immune to that, because they get that every single day. So make sure when you're supporting someone, when you're helping someone, be gentle, give them grace, and try to understand what it feels like. Have you ever been powerless? You lost something and you felt like you don't know what to do? That's how they feel. And although you never may have been abused, but I know someone has been abused, you felt powerless before, felt like you didn't know what to do. You may have felt lost before. Those same feelings that you felt
Mm-hmm.
is what they're feeling. And so you need to have that empathy in that way. You wouldn't want somebody to be telling you those things when you felt hopeless and powerless. And so um, I just want to definitely just today just talk about domestic violence. Coach Gigi, do you have any last words that you want to share to our audience, to any of the women who are survivors, who still in? What is some words you would like to say to them before we close out on tonight?
Know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And remember, masterpieces take time. You are God's masterpiece, made in the image of God. And again, He didn't make us to be no punching bag. And remember, play defense. Because I play defense. Defend yourself and get away from it. I love you with the love of the Lord. All y'all that's on here. And I pray that my testimony helped someone. And thank you again, Dr. Taniko.
Thank you so much, Coach Gigi, for sharing your story tonight, sharing your journey tonight. And so I am just elated to have you on the Queen's Couch tonight with a subject that is so near and dear to my heart. I'm very passionate about domestic violence, gender based violence, human trafficking.
Yes.
Those are the things that I'm very passionate about. I am a domestic violence survivor as a teenager, and I was in church. We were both in church. But
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have a safe space, because I was afraid, because I didn't feel like if I came to a trusted adult, I would not have gotten in trouble. So that's what happened. But continue to, um, you know, if you are a teen, listen, tell a trusted adult. Um, you don't want to be in a situation And this situation, we was fighting each other. It was both of us fighting. So it still was toxic. You don't want to be in toxic
Yeah.
relationships where you're crying. You should be
Yeah.
happy. This should be the happiest time when you're a teenager. You don't have no bills. I mean, you got peer pressure and things like that. But the pressure of feeling like you're trapped, someone's going to hit you, you got to fight, you got to defend yourself. Everything you're doing is being controlled at such a young age. You're in a relationship that you should not be in. Um, you don't want to do that as a teenager. And
Mm-mm.
so I always tell people, you as a parent, make sure that no matter what happens, your child feels what they can tell you. It's those
Yes.
girls right now that are being trafficked because they got in a relationship, they left home, they ran away, but they couldn't run back home because they felt that they didn't have a safe space at home because they were going to be punished. So I want to tell every mom out here that has a teenage girl to make sure that you are the most dominant voice in her life, and that
Yes.
no matter what happens, you're going to get through it together. And she knows that and she feels that, because I'm telling you, when she runs away, it's the choice between her coming back and staying in the streets and being prostituted, being trafficked, being just abused. And so I just am very passionate about, listen, be the dominant voice. And no
Yes.
matter what happens, you might be upset. We're going to say we get through it, and go tell your girlfriends, be mad and be like, I can't believe she did this. But do not inflict her with the same pain that she's feeling because she ran away. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Coach GJ.
Yes.
Next week we will have another survivor. She has a ministry called Heal with Words, and words can hurt you, but words
Mhm.
can also be a healing force to help you
Yes.
on your journey to healing and wholeness. And listen, you have been on the Queen's Couch with Dr. Taniko Victoria and Coach Gigi, and
Yes.
we want to let you know that the Queen's Couch is the place where queens collaborate and we do
We
not
don't.
divide. Thank you for being on the couch tonight, and join us next week as we talk about the way words can heal your wounds. Have a great one. Thank you, Coach Gigi. Thank you,
Yes.
Tribe. I will see you next week. Dr. T is signing off. Bye.
Bye bye.
Hello and welcome to the Queen's Couch Podcast with our amazing host, Dr. Taniko Victoria. She curates a space for women where all women are encouraged to collaborate and do not collide. Join us on the couch tonight.